A big announcement from Steve Sarkisian's signing day presser. The Ohio State and Michigan games aren't going anywhere. Is it the right move for Texas? Let's discuss on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Two massive portal questions facing the Longhorns, plus a big takeaway from National Signing Day. We'll get to those stories in a few. But first, at his National Signing Day press conference yesterday, Texas Longhorns head coach Steve Sarkisian let everybody know that the Horns' upcoming non-conference games against Ohio State and Michigan will remain on the Longhorns' schedule. Over the past few days, there's been a ton of question about whether or not Texas was going to pull the plug on the return trips for the Buckeyes and Wolverines in 2026 and 2027, respectively. Yesterday, we got our answer. Here's Steve Sarkisian talking for nearly 2 minutes about the decision and why it's being made.
First of all, we're going to honor Ohio State and Michigan. We went there, we went to Ann Arbor, we went to Columbus. We're going to honor those return trips. So for the next 2 years, we know what our non-conference schedule is going to look like, and that's the right thing to do. We made the commitment to play them. Now we'll honor that commitment for them to come play us here. I think anything beyond that is up for discussion. We need to, in CDC and I have already had that discussion, we need to take a good hard look at what our non-conference schedule looks like beyond the next 2 years. Because you got to remember, so much of the non-conference scheduling was when we were in the Big 12, and these schedules were made when we were in the Big 12. Well, there's a little bit of a different shift now that we're in the Southeastern Conference, and another shift now that we're going to 9 conference games. And so we've got to be mindful of one, putting our players in the best position to have success and to have growth. 2, we got to be mindful of how the committee is going to evaluate to put the best teams into the college football playoff. Now, the goal is to go win the Southeastern Conference every year. And when you do that, you don't have to worry about what the record looked like. And you probably have a good record if you're in that game and winning it. But I also need to look at what the committee has shown me over the last 2 years since we've expanded to 12 games. They care about your record. And so we've got to be mindful of that as we go, and we'll see what that looks like. Again, we're going to honor Ohio State and Michigan, and we're excited to play those games. They're going to be great environments in DKR. I know our players are looking forward to it. Our coaches are looking forward to those games. It should be highly competitive ball games with great teams, great players, great coaches. But beyond that is where we got to have some real discussions of what our non-conference schedule looks like after that.
Yeah, interesting of note at the very end of that response, Steve Sarkisian talked about beyond 2027, we're going to have some serious discussions about what our non-conference schedule looks like. Obviously, after the Ohio State and Michigan return trips, the Longhorns have a home-and-home scheduled with Notre Dame starting in 2028. And considering that Notre Dame is one of the teams keeping Texas out of the playoff with their 10-2 record against a bunch of crappy teams, I don't think Steve Sarkisian's going to have too much interest in helping them out. Plus, on top of that, Texas has already played their road games at Ohio State and Michigan. They haven't started the series against the Irish, so that'll make those games easier to scrap should the Horns decide to do so. Anyways, back to the next 2 years. Ohio State will be here next fall. Michigan will be here in 2027. Is leaving those games on the schedule the smart move for Texas? No, it's not. Now, if you agree with the move, I understand that. There are plenty of reasons why you can agree with the decision. If you're a season ticket holder who invests a lot of hard-earned money into your seats, you're probably very happy with this decision. If you're a fan who enjoys watching these games on TV versus something like Texas Sam Houston, you're happy too. And maybe you subscribe to the age-old Texas battle cry, the pride and winning tradition. of the University of Texas will not be entrusted to the weak nor the timid. Hey, we're Texas. We're not weak. We don't back down from competition. We welcome it. We embrace it. It would have been a tough look for the school if they backed out of these games. The narrative would have been that Texas chickened out and that they were scared. I mean, shoot, when Texas didn't acquiesce to Ohio State's ridiculous request to move the week 1 game this year to Sunday night instead of the originally scheduled Saturday big noon kickoff that only happened because of the conference that Ohio State is in, people called Texas soft. You're too scared to play the Buckeyes at night. Imagine what this would have done if Texas just backed out of the game altogether. And the internet would have exploded. And also, look, we signed up for this agreement. We're not going to break it off. That too. So again, if you agree with this decision, I just gave you 4 or 5 reasons why you are justified in that agreement. But I'll ask you the question again, and I would love to get y'all's thoughts on this if you're tuned in on YouTube in the comments below. Is this the smart decision for Texas? For me, I'll reiterate my answer. No, it's not. Playing Ohio State instead of insert cupcake Power 4 school here is keeping the Longhorns out of the playoff this season. Next year, you heard Steve Sarkisian kind of reference the move to the SEC, number one, but also the move to a 9-game conference schedule. That's what Texas has to deal with. One more conference game than they had this year. You got road trips to LSU, A&M, Tennessee, and Missouri. You've got the Oklahoma game, of course, in Dallas, Ole Miss, Florida, a couple of other teams coming at home. That's not easy. There may be 2 losses in there. Even if Texas is really good in 2026, they might lose a couple of games in conference play, and most conference schedules around the nation won't be nearly as difficult as that. And then on top of that, you're potentially playing the back-to-back defending national champions in week 2. Obviously, we'll see what happens in this playoff. The Longhorns ended this season with the number 8 strength of schedule in the country. It may be right there again next year. It shouldn't be the case, but the committee has told you that you are weakening your chances of making the 2026 college football playoff if you play that game against Ohio State. I hate that that's the reality, but that's what they've shown us in the 2 years of a playoff that's bigger than 4 teams. I mentioned the saying yesterday, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If we're in this exact same spot next year, how are you going to be feeling? Now, the easy response to everything I just said was, hey, just go win this game. And look, if Texas does that, they're going to be all right. The game is in Austin. That's an advantage for Texas. The Longhorns were 6-0 at DKR TMS this year with 2 wins against top 10 teams. So they absolutely can beat Ohio State next year. And at some point, if the Longhorns are going to win a national championship, which is what we all want them to do, you're probably going to have to beat Ohio State. So why not play them again and test your mettle against the best of the best? Well, I just told you the why not. It's because the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't care. And as of now, it doesn't feel like the reward outweighs the risk. I'd feel a heck of a lot better about the Longhorns beating Purdue, Rutgers, Syracuse, or Oklahoma State in week 2 of the 2026 season instead of Ohio State. Could Texas win that game? Sure. But those other teams, they don't have Julian Sayin. They don't have Bo Jackson. They don't have Jeremiah Smith. All 3 of those guys will be back for Ohio State next year, by the way, barring an unexpected transfer. If you told me right now that the committee is going to change the way they evaluate teams, not how they say they're going to evaluate teams, but like how they actually evaluate teams, then I'm 100% in favor of the Ohio State game remaining on the schedule next year and the Michigan game remaining on the schedule 2 years from now. And look, with the CFP expanding to 14 or 16 teams starting next year, it's going to force the committee to look at everything anyways. And you know Greg Sankey, he's not happy with the fact that 9-3 Texas will be left out, 10-2 Vanderbilt will be left out, and it's 2 years in a row where a number of SEC teams with much tougher strengths of schedules won't be in favor of teams from much, much weaker conferences. So you know there are already going to be some changes that get made, but if they're not actually going to change the way they evaluate these resumes, if they're only going to look at wins and losses like they've seemingly done with Texas here in 2025, this decision could really come back to bite us. So I don't think it's the smart move for Texas unless the committee totally changes their approach, which they should. My God, they should. We've spent the last 4 days talking about that, haven't we? So I'd love to hear from y'all once again. The right move for Texas. Do you agree with the decision? We put out a poll on YouTube the other day, and I basically asked the question, should Texas cancel these games or should they keep playing these major non-conference games? The majority of y'all said the Longhorns should scrap these big games. So would love to hear from y'all. Has your opinion changed with the last couple of days? All right, enough of that. Let's talk transfer portal, shall we? With National Signing Day now behind us, Texas's attention now turns to the portal. The Longhorns have some big questions facing their 2026 roster. We'll go over a couple of the biggest ones up next on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, the holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get that positive reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every single time. It's not just something you wrap. This is a way to share memories because Aura isn't just your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with your photos before you gift it. So when someone plugs it in, the memories are already there. There's no apps to figure out. There's no setup headaches. It's instant smiles. They're going to be pumped right away. Thinking about getting one of these for my girlfriend, right? Preloading it with pictures of us. She would absolutely love it. This could make a perfect gift for your significant other, for a family member, for a close friend. This is a holiday gift that will actually get used, not just forgotten in the drawer or returned a day later. For a limited time, how about this? Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Use the promo code COLLEGE at checkout. auraframes.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. And be sure to support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. It's auraframes.com. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. The transfer portal doesn't officially open until January 2nd, but portal conversations are already going on across the country. Texas, obviously, no exception. And while everyone is looking around trying to figure out who the Longhorns are going to add, it's critical to remember the importance of keeping some of your own guys in-house, right? Plenty of teams are going to be trying to poach Longhorn players, and Steve Sarkisian and company will have some big decisions to make regarding next year's roster, who they want to keep, who they can't afford to lose, this, that, and the other. So a couple of huge questions. We'll start with the offensive side of the ball today that need to be answered this offseason that will have a direct impact on how Texas plays next fall. We'll start up front with the offensive line. We've talked about it here, and I think just about every Longhorn fan has talked about it somewhere. The biggest area for Texas to address in the portal is the offensive line, no question. Here's the good news. I mean, this is great news for Texas. Both tackles are expected to return. I know Trevor Gooseby could go pro, but early signs are pointing to him returning for his redshirt junior year. Brandon Baker at right tackle. He still has another season before he's draft eligible. Gooseby's been a rock. We know that. Trevor Gooseby. Brandon Baker got a lot better as his first year as a starter went along. That's great news. Number one, both of those guys are really good. Number two, tackles are a lot more expensive to bring in than guys on the interior of the offensive line. So no questions at tackle. That's great. But what about guard and center? DJ Campbell out of eligibility. Cole Hudson out of eligibility. Those guys obviously ended the season as the starting guards. We saw Nick Brooks play some left guard. We saw Connor Stroh play some left guard. We saw Neto Umeozulu play a little bit of left guard. I did not see anything that leads me to believe that any of those three guys can be relied upon as the starter at left guard next season. I know guys can get better, but if 2026 is as win now as I want it to be, you can't just hope that those guys are ready to go. At right guard, DJ Campbell was a rock there all season. He's been a starter for a long time. He will be missed. You've got those three names I just brought up, plus Nate Kibble and Daniel Cruz. if those guys weren't good enough to get looks at left guard with all of the issues the Horns had on the offensive line this year, I'm not sure you can rely on them either. Texas is probably going to lose some of those guys to the portal anyways. We'll see who Texas tries to keep. That'll go a long way into letting us know how they feel about the interior of the offensive line. But yeah, guards, big areas to look at. And then Connor Robertson at center. He could come back. He did walk on senior night against A&M last Friday. So we'll see what his future holds. He was an upgrade over Cole Hudson at center, but I don't think I want him manning the middle of the Texas offensive line next season. So that right there, you might need 2 guards and a center. That's 3 portal guys on the interior alone. We saw the Longhorns grab 5 D linemen last year, and it worked. Of those 5 guys, 2 of them didn't really contribute a whole lot. So you'd love to be able to pay and bring in 3, and boom, right there, you've got 3 impact guys, but you may need to give yourself a little bit of a buffer. Maybe bring in 5 and expect that 3 will pan out. Transfers don't always work, as we've learned. Having a security blanket, never a bad thing, even though it'll be a costly one. Texas, I definitely hope, but I would also expect at least 3 offensive linemen coming in. The other big question on the offense involves the running back position. Sitting here on December 4th, 2025, I can tell you that I can't tell you what the Longhorn running back room is going to look like in 2026. I'm not even sure I can assure you who the running backs coach is going to be. With Neil Brown leaving to take the head coaching job at North Texas, I'm wondering if current Texas running backs coach Chad Scott is going to follow him. Those guys worked together at West Virginia before coming to Texas, and Scott was a big reason why Neil Brown got the job as the special assistant to the head coach at Texas this past year. So I wonder if Neil Brown could maybe repay Chad Scott by giving him an offensive coordinator position in Denton. Who knows? Even if that doesn't happen, it's reasonable to think that Steve Sarkisian could move on from Chad Scott. This was the worst rushing offense that Steve Sarkisian has ever had as a head coach or offensive coordinator, and it was the worst rushing offense the Longhorns have had since the 40s. So the coach is a question. In terms of personnel, more applicable to this portal chat, the only guy in that room that I can confidently say will be back next season is James Simon. There's going to be some attrition at running back. There's no doubt. I mean, Jarrett Gibson already left midseason. We know he is gone. He's not going to be alone. I'd be stunned if Ricky Stewart, the other tailback the Horns signed in 2025, is back on the roster. He didn't play at all his freshman year, and there were some reports that he had been away from the team for a while. So it feels like that ship has sailed. Then you wonder about Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter. I think Trey Wisner will return. He's draft eligible this year, but going from over 1,000 yards in 2024 to not even 600 in 2025 probably isn't going to turn too many NFL heads. It seems obvious that Trey Wisner would want to raise his draft stock with another year of college football. But with the limited amount of snaps and hits that running backs can handle, guys leaving early at that position should never surprise you. I mean, we all thought Jaden Blue should have stayed for his senior year last year on the 40 acres. Instead, he left early and he got drafted. Now, he's not playing at all for the Cowboys, so maybe that can be a cautionary tale that encourages Wisner to come back for one more year, but that is not set in stone right now. We don't have an official answer for Trey Wisner. And then CJ Baxter. The question for me regarding CJ is, does Texas want him back? I know how hard this staff recruited him. I know he was a 5-star. I know how big of a deal it was when he signed. I know the staff loves him. He's well respected in the locker room. He's a great guy, but he's just not the same player he was before the knee injury. And maybe he will be. Maybe he just needs, one more offseason to get right, and we're going to see freshman year C4 all over again next fall. But I don't know if you can just bank on that happening. Like, he looked washed in the latter half of the season. A far cry from what he was, and honestly, a far cry from a guy who looks like he can be a key piece on a national championship contending team. Baxter can go pro. I doubt he does that, but does he consider transferring somewhere else where he's guaranteed to play? I fully expect the Longhorns to add an impact running back from the portal, not like a Velton Gardner type. I'm talking somebody who can contribute like what Ahmad Hardy did at Missouri this year. So you'll have that guy plus Trey Wisner, meaning at best, CJ Baxter's number 3. You've got James Simon coming into year 2. You've got the 5-star Derek Cooper in his first year. Like if Baxter wants to ensure some playing time and have the opportunity to play his way back into NFL conversations, it might be best for him to leave. I know some Texas fans don't want to see that happen, but that could very well happen. So I'm fascinated to see what happens at running back. Again, offensive line and running back, two major areas of need in the portal, but also there's going to be some attrition there. Who stays, who goes, we will all find out together. All right. We didn't get a ton of fireworks on day one of the early signing period, but there's one big name out there who surprisingly did not sign with another team that could be an option for the Longhorns. We've got some pretty juicy details coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the absolute best, especially when a game starts to shift. Receiver gets hot, defense tightens up. You get some big momentum shift after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment at any time. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. Keeps you locked in to every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action all NFL season long, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all year. FanDuel, the game moves fast. So do you. All right, welcome back. Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Day one of the early signing period is in the books. Day two is today, and then the 3-day period wraps up tomorrow. Now, of course, the regular, traditional, maybe old school is the best way to describe it, National Signing Day will still happen in February, but we all know that more than 90% of recruits will sign in this early window. A few will wait till February before putting pen to paper. Most guys have already signed, and if they haven't, they'll likely be signed by Friday. But there's one big signing day storyline to keep an eye on. Most of Texas's work is already done. Steve Sarkisian did hint, though, that there might be something else coming down the pike, and here's a name to pay attention to. 5-star wide receiver Chris Henry Jr. committed to Ohio State in July of 2023. Been committed to the Buckeyes for 2.5 years. He did not sign with OSU yesterday. You're wondering why? Well, something significant happened. Buckeyes wide receiver coach and offensive coordinator Brian Hartline is taking the head coaching job at South Florida. Hartline is a monster recruiter. He is an elite wide receivers coach. I mean, the best in the country. Honestly, him leaving is a really good sign for Texas and really good news for a lot of other major programs who compete against Ohio State on the recruiting trail year in and year out. But yeah, the number one wide receiver in this class of 2026 did not sign. And the good news, well, Texas may be in the mix here. Texas was involved with Henry Jr. early, and unfortunately, again, Hartline stole this recruitment a couple of years ago, but now that this curveball is hit, Texas is taking a real swing here. This guy is a monster. Top 10 player overall. He's 6'5", 205 pounds. He's got track speed. He has a ridiculous catch radius. He turns 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls. I mean, I was salivating over watching this guy's highlights the other day. He has a chance, and I mean a very good chance, to be a high first-round pick in the NFL draft once his college career is done. So whoever gets him is going to be getting an absolute dude. Steve Sarkisian and Brandon Harris both said yesterday that they are actively working every angle to try to get a flip here. Again, Henry did not decommit from Ohio State. He just hasn't signed yet. So Texas trying to get a flip, but unfortunately the Longhorns are not alone here. Oregon is pushing hard. Henry has a strong relationship with Ducks head coach Dan Lanning. That's not great. Some good news, though, for Texas. Henry plays his high school ball at Mater Dei. Texas wide receivers coach Chris Jackson once coached at Mater Dei, so you've got that connection there. But again, Henry's got that connection with Dan Lanning at Oregon. He's also originally from Ohio, so Brian Hartline leaving may not eliminate the Buckeyes from contention in this one. If I'm being honest, if I were to power rank this thing right now, I would probably say Texas is third behind Ohio State and Oregon, but it's not done yet. And look, Texas isn't third because they're not trying. It's just because the relationships just haven't been as strong or as long-standing as those other two schools involved. That said, Texas is making it really clear how bad they want this guy, especially after some recruiting misses at other positions. We talked about the good news, Texas getting a flip from four-star athlete Torrey Davis a couple of nights ago. But unfortunately, the flip god's not always kind to Texas, as Texas lost two players via flip yesterday. Rodney Cleveland, the defensive lineman, flipped to North Carolina. We talked about that. That was kind of expected for a while. But Texas also lost Corey Wells, another defensive lineman who flipped to Auburn. Not as expected. We knew Auburn was making a late push for Corey Wells, but I think Texas felt pretty good about that. Auburn came in with a big money NIL deal late to get that one done. He's already signed as well, so that ship has sailed. With those guys taking offers, NIL money elsewhere, Texas does have a little bit more money to spend. Could they use that to make a strong push for Henry? Possible. It is very possible. We talked about it. Texas is going to be spending heavy in the transfer portal. Feels like they saved some of their recruiting resources for the portal this year to try to go all in on winning in 2026. But maybe the staff is a little extra motivated with those two late flips away from Texas. And maybe with that extra money that opened up, Texas, hey, they already had X amount allotted for the transfer portal. They're fine about that amount. Now they maybe have some more to spend from the high school ranks. Could they do something to woo Chris Henry Jr. away from Ohio State or Oregon? It's an uphill battle, but it is one worth watching closely. It could be one of the more dramatic late cycle storylines, whether it's Ohio State, Oregon, or Texas. Chris Henry Jr., an absolute monster. We'll see if this thing comes down this week. We'll see if we have to wait until February, but definitely one that y'all should be locked in on moving forward. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. If you made it this far, number one, God bless you. Number two, please remember to like, share, subscribe, rate 5 stars if you're listening via podcast. Leave a comment if you're watching via YouTube. Can't thank you all enough for your continued support of Locked On Longhorns. For your next listen, check out Locked On SEC. My man Chris Gordy is talking all things Southeastern Conference, National Signing Day, the upcoming conference championship, and so much more. You can find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. More portal reaction, more signing day reaction, more schedule stuff. There's a lot to dive into. Never a dull moment covering the Texas Longhorns, and we've got you covered with everything right here on Locked On Longhorns. But that'll do it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.